lead us to the truth or something like that. And that ultimately, next year, we'll have this theory in which they won't have the infinities in there, and then we'll be in paradise.
It seems very Occam that we need something coherent and just clean and right to the point, rather than maybe a metaphysics and a physics that is a little more convoluted with a concept that's not as easily maintained by more simple mathematics. I'm very ignorant of the fact, obviously. I'm just trying to peddle with words that I've learned in this talk.
It's okay. We're all amateurs at some level.
That's right. So I guess my point being, it's easy for me to see Descartes' objection and, you know, Alfred North Whitehead and say, okay, yeah, that's a little harsh. A priori groundings are assumptions, and they're hard to wrestle with, really. But whenever you put your ass to the fire, and then it seemed to be very necessary. So how would you console these guys if they were like, no, 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 you know, in here screaming at the top of their quantum lungs that infinitude is just over, what's the word I'm looking for? Parasitic, really. It's just too hard to handle.
Well, they would probably say things like, but we've had some success in handling a lot of infinities and getting rid of them. There's a renormalization process in physics that I have to explore, but my problem is with the background attitude of they think that a priori the infinities must be gotten rid of. They're not pragmatic enough to say, okay, we've got infinities or we don't have infinities, let's see how it works. And that ultimately is grounded in their intuitions and feelings about how they'd like the world to be, as if they want the world to conform to their feelings. And that kind of attitude has not been very successful if you look at history. And the Greeks once thought that reality had to conform to the way you thought. And what we've learned is that if you look at the grand scheme, the grand span over many centuries of the growth of science, intuitions have lost out time and again to good theory.
Is there any coherent way of the detractors coming to some middle ground where, say, they can adopt one of the three conceptions of infinity, whether it's largest, smallness, or many, but exclude the other two, where they believe, say, they believe in the infinitely many, but not the small or large, or infinitely small and not the larger many? Would there be some way of them coming closer to your view than not fully adopting it? Or for you to go closer to theirs?
Yeah, I mean, but see, on the other, let's just turn the tables and attack Dowden here. Or not attack Dowden, but let's get at what Dowden's assumptions are. I'm not saying I know a priori that there are infinities in the world, physical infinities. Yeah. I'm willing to cave on this if you can show me otherwise. It's just that I think nobody can show me otherwise. All they can say is, well, someday we'll have a theory that we get rid of infinities. And I say, yes, but look at all the theories you've got. They've got infinities all over the place. Sort of my attitude. Yeah, I'm sure that one of these days Einstein's theory will get replaced. I just don't know what it'll be replaced with. Same with quantum mechanics.
I have a question about, I guess, an objection to this one.
Yeah.
Isn't a moment...
You don't like the way she's treating her husband?
Yes,
or vice versa.
That was my argument. Wouldn't the moment be more of a linguistic convention rather than a physical object?
Well, it's both. I mean, we think that our words about time really successfully refer to something in the world when we say there's time and space and moments and segments and things like that. There are places, there's duration. Yes, we come up with words for these things. We mentally come up with concepts. But we don't say it's just in the mind or just in the language. We say it's really about something out there. Now, the term moment is a vague term in English. I mean, there is a more precise term in science that doesn't use this vague term moment, because moments can last from 0 time to, well, that was just a moment in geological history kind of thing, even though it lasted 300,000 years. So the term moment is vague. But in science, it's actually, that's the, when I say, here's an example of something that's infinitely small, I really mean not the informal notion of moment. I really mean point in time. A zero durationalist, a duration of zero measure. And those are, if we look at our theory of time, the theory that time is what clocks measure, right? And no clock can be used to measure zero duration. So it's not like we've measured zero durations out there. These are contributions from our theory. And to have a good theory of time, we have to assume the calculus and its structure on time. That durations have the structure of the mathematical line. This is fantastically useful. And the mathematical line has zero length objects in it that we call points. So time does too.
Okay. I'm just kind of thinking that like a point in time is something that's it's a conventional thing. It relies on our measurement.
No, not our measurement, because, well, there is measurement is involved. I mean, nobody can measure zero length for time. Right? You use your clock and say, did that last for zero duration, or did that last for 1 over some giant number of seconds, right? Because they're too close together. You can't measure the difference. But we could go the other way. We could refute it. We could, for example, if we found that there, with our clocks or whatever, we could find a smallest time that we couldn't get clocks to tick any less than that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. This would like be evidence that, hey, maybe time is atomistic after all.
Well, what about,
it's just we haven't found that.
could fluctuations in quantum foam be that smallest unit of time?
Possibly, yes.
If that's the case.
Maybe the fluctuations are like in the movie cinematic, right, where one still picture after another, when you show them in a sequence, it makes it look like it's continuous. In fact, maybe at the quantum foam level, it's not. Quantum foam level is very tiny. I mean, atoms, nucleus of an atom is just gigantic in comparison with the scale of the quantum foam. We're talking about like 10 to the minus 43 seconds long events. And 10 to the minus 33 long distances in space. Really tiny.
Time. I don't think it would be possible to measure the smallest moment in time if there is one. But I won't admit to something being unless it's measurable in some way, like the moment. So I'm hesitant to accept that there are infinitely small moments, and I don't think I ever will, because they're not even theoretically measurable.
Okay, I used to think like that, and I don't think like that anymore, because I was raised as an empiricist and thought, well, show me, I'm from Missouri, right? So I'm really not, but anyway. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Says so on the university. It's a well-known fake birth certificate. I got it from the same place Obama got his birth certificate. But anyway, let's get back to your point. And that is that, why is it so important that you have to measure it? Isn't it more important that there be measurements and observations relevant to the theory, which implies there are such things, rather than that you necessarily have to directly be able to measure them? Like, I'll give you a slightly non-analogous point here, but don't you think that there is a center of the sun? Center of mass of the sun.
Maybe, yes. I'll say yes.
Okay. And that is not a singularity of, it's not a, there's no like absence of space in the middle of the sun? Okay. Now how are you going to go, why do you believe that if nobody's ever gone to the center of the sun and checked to see if it's empty there or in fact it's got space there? Because you accept the theory, which is detestable in so many ways, which implies that even if nobody can physically go there, nevertheless there is a center of the sun, right? There's no absence of space there or anything like that.
I guess the reason I'm willing to accept that and not moments is because I can't think of I can't think of anything that would be a better explanation than there being a center of the sun, or be an alternative explanation. Whereas moment in time, I think the possible alternative is that fluctuations in quantum foam might be the smallest unit of time. And
They might be, right?
and because
But
they're
do you think those are measurable?
no. I don't think so.
Okay.
And I just think because there's an alternative that I can think of, there's a moment, if one of them is correct, there either are moments or there are not moments. There are either moments or there is the smallest unit of time.
Okay, I'm happy with the lowest excluded middle here. It's one or the other.
Because I can think of the other possibility, I'm not going to accept moments. Because I can think of the possibility for the other side.
Yeah, okay, but you have to ask yourself, which theories have got the best empirical confirmation? Which theories have been best tested? Right? And what we find is that the theory which says space and time are a continuum, and therefore there are points of space and points of time, is very well tested. Whereas theories that say that space and time are chunky, that there's smallest space, smallest time, and perhaps at quantum foam level, are imaginable, but nobody's got such a theory. Wheeler is the guy who first came up with this idea, John Wheeler, Princeton University Physics Department. He said maybe, and he encouraged people to go look and see if they could, do something with this, but nobody's ever done anything other than get convinced that maybe there is quantum foam. But even if there is quantum foam, it doesn't follow that it's discrete down there at the foamy level. It may be foamy all the way down.
The current theory can be stated in the exact, very similarly, just including chunkiness instead of smoothness. And there aren't any observations that we've had so far that make the smoothness more likely than the chunkiness. And if you can think of an example, I'd like to hear it. Do we have any evidence that points to the smooth theory as being more likely than the chunky theory, other than?
Well, what we have is absence of evidence in favor of the chunky theory.
Yeah.
other than, hey, it's down at the fine enough level below any direct measuring apparatus, therefore you can't refute me by direct measurement. I say, fine, we can't refute you by direct measurement. I don't think maybe we'll ever come up with an instrument that's that fine. But that's not a reason not to believe this other theory, because the burden of proof is on you. Since you have a extraordinary claim, you have an extraordinary burden of evidence to defend yourself against the status quo. And that's one move. Another philosophical move I make is more informal. It's like, how do you know there aren't ghosts? Maybe there are ghosts. I'm claiming that there are undetectable ghosts. And that there are 2 of them in this room. And I say, go ahead and refute me. I'm not going to believe there aren't ghosts until you can refute my claim that there are 2 undetectable ghosts in this room.
But I'm
And
not,
don't you going to say, well, that's philosophically silly. Dowden, you're being so stubborn about ghosts. Right?
isn't that how you're being with moments?
Oh, okay. So you're going to turn the tables on me.
I'm not committing myself to saying there is a smallest unit of time. I am just not committed to saying there isn't a smallest unit of time.
Oh, well, let me stick with this ghost thing. But
Okay.
are you willing to commit that there aren't 2 undetectable